that there is one rule of thumb that you can count on, not 99% of the time, but 100% of the time. And that is, if you're an insider like Donna Brazile, and you write a book that pulls back the curtain and reveals the shenanigans, the manipulations, that reveals all the things the general public is never supposed to know about, they will put you in the crosshairs. They will call you all sorts of names. They will say you're crazy, and worse than that. And I speak from firsthand experience. When I left CBS News and wrote a book called Bias, about liberal bias in the media, they did the same thing to me.
Really?
I was,
how
they
so?
They called me a traitor. They don't call real traitors a traitor, but I was a traitor because I wrote about what I saw. I pulled back the curtain too. I wrote about the manipulations. I wrote about the cheating. I wrote about all the things the public's not supposed to know about. So what they're doing to Donna Brazile, at least from my perspective, is absolutely predictable.
Huh. How'd your life change when that happened? I imagine you lost a lot of friends, Bernie.
Well, that, you know, you used the exact right word. That's interesting, because I was going to say the one thing that I learned most is that people who you think are your friends aren't necessarily your friends, because when the going gets tough, if I could use the cliche,
yeah.
When things get hot, I became radioactive. I became people didn't want to be seen with me or anything else. They didn't dispute the arguments that I made. They didn't dispute that. I mean, they said there was no liberal bias, but they didn't say, when I said, well, what about this? They didn't respond point by point. They just decided to put me in the crosshairs. I was the villain, I was the traitor, and they thought that was going to get them some breathing room. It didn't, because the public knows that what I said back then is true. Even liberal journalists acknowledge it now. And Donna Brazile, I suspect, is going to be tough enough, and I think I was tough enough to deal with it. She'll be tough enough to deal with it, too.
I wanted to roll a clip from her from earlier in the week, and I want to pull something from Bernie Sanders here, okay? And you can react to both. This is what Donna Brazile told Tucker the other night about the fundraising within the DNC and why she called it out. Watch.
I come from the school, Tucker, that you actually knock on doors, you talk to people, you try to get their support, and then you try to get them out on Election Day. Robbie comes from a school that is a lot different than the school I came from. They do algorithms. They do data modeling. It was dismissive, condescending and dismissive. And I wanted the campaign to understand that we needed yard signs. We needed radio spots.
Very interesting interview the other night, and I know she's done a ton of them. I'm a little confused as to whether or not she gave away the debate questions. That story seems to be changing. This story, however, is not. Bernie Sanders in Politico writes the following just today. If we are to succeed, we must fully appreciate Brazile's revelations and understand the need for far more transparency in the financial and policy workings of the Democratic Party. Hundreds of millions of dollars flow in and out of the DNC with little to no accountability. That simply is not acceptable. Bernie Sanders, Politico.com.
Yeah.
What's the effect of that or the hangover, Bernie? Go ahead.
Well, for a guy who isn't shy about calling Republicans all sorts of names, and when he can't say the word billionaire without it sounding like it's some crime against humanity, he ought to say the system was in fact rigged, and I'm the guy who got rigged. They cheated, and I'm the guy who paid the price for that. But he's trying to walk that tightrope. You know, he doesn't want to sound like he's whining about losing. He might have lost anyway. And so he won't come out and say what a lot of us would like to hear him say. They cheated. Donna Brazile got it right. I was the victim of that process, and I don't like it. And if it doesn't change, they're going to lose again. He's not going to say that. He's a little too diplomatic, but he's not diplomatic when it comes to bad-mouthing Republicans or people with money.
The swamp reaches far and wide. Bernie Goldberg, sir, have a great weekend.
You too, Bill.